Hi folks, a quick bonus podcast to mark the start of the new Holyrood session. Parliament only went back this week and they've gone right in with a bang.
That's come very quick, hasn't it?
It has come very quick. I've certainly been guilty of, and a lot of people have, moaning about we're not getting enough from John Swinney, from the SNP, from the Scottish Government. Why aren't they doing more? Why aren't they doing it faster? Suddenly, I think John Swinney's out the blocks this week on a lot of different fronts. And I've been just looking at things that have happened and going, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. Oh, well done. Oh, good for that. So we thought we would just capture a few of them.
Sorry, I'm sorry just to be sitting here laughing. I'm just chuckling at the image of John Swinney quick out of the blocks, really, because it does bring to mind greyhound racing. And I never really think of Mr. Swinney quite like that. But, you know.
Well, he's a runner. He runs every day.
That's true. He is actually. Yeah, he is. Anyway, we do need to get out of the blocks because it's not that long till this election, and it's really, really important. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good.
We'll get on to his speech about independence and everything. But the very first thing I was so pleased with was that he stood up in Parliament and made a statement about Scottish Government's response to Gaza. It was a sort of 15-minute speech. I've just picked out a really short bit, which is the key bit.
But in the face of genocide, there can be no business as usual. We will pause new awards of public money to arms companies whose products or services are provided to countries where there is plausible evidence of genocide being committed by that country. That will include Israel. The pause will apply where possible to new grants provided or investment made by the Scottish Government, our enterprise agencies and the Scottish National Investment Bank. Any defence company seeking support from the Scottish Government will have to demonstrate that its products are not involved militarily with Israel. The UK Government should review what other steps it must now take in view of the United Kingdom's duty in international law to respond when there is a serious risk of genocide. Until we have that clarity, however, new public monies should not go to arms companies involved with the Israeli military.
Hallelujah. We've been saying for so long. Yeah, good day's work there. So following that, there was a debate on Palestine. And Patrick Harvey put in an amendment to the motion from Angus Robertson. We should have a two-state solution. Patrick Harvey's motion, I thought, was very good. It calls on the Scottish and UK governments to immediately impose a package of boycotts, divestments and sanctions targeted at the State of Israel and at companies complicit in its military operations and its occupation of Palestine. So I think that goes slightly further than even what John Swinney said. He was talking about not giving arms to...
It certainly makes it really, really clear, doesn't it? Yeah.
And the good news is that that amendment was accepted and Angus Robertson's motion as amended was agreed. It was voted for by SNP and Greens. Shamefully, the Lib Dems and the Tories voted against it. And Labour abstained.
Well, they probably hadn't got permission from London.
Yeah, they hadn't been told what they were supposed to vote.
That's right, they hadn't been told what to do. Oh, I mean, the fact that the Tories voted against it, but the Lib Dems voted against it.
Yeah, it's pathetic. I mean, funnily enough, I got a leaflet through my door today from the Lib Dems, and I thought, you've wasted printing the cost of that leaflet because of what you've just done there, because that is not, in line with public opinion, I don't think. But anyway, so anybody wondering who to vote for, if this is an issue that you care for, Tories, Lib Dem and Labour couldn't bring it on themselves to vote to end selling arms to Israel. So really pleased to see that.
Yeah, good. That is really good. And I mean, within the Muslim community in Scotland, the Palestinian community in Scotland, that's going to go down like ton of bricks on terms of what Labour have done. I mean, they've surely lost votes again doing that. I mean, I don't even believe that most of the Labour MSPs wouldn't have felt sympathetic to that. Anyway, but obviously they're not allowed, and that tells us something about so-called Scottish Labour being, as it's usually called, North British Labour or the branch office. It's the branch office.
And what was odd, what was weird about it as well, Neil Bibby had a big amendment to Angus Robertson's motion, and that was accepted. But it was so woolly.
Which party is he?
Neil Bibby is Scottish Labour. So their amendment was actually agreed, but they still couldn't bring themselves to vote for the motion that there should be a two-state solution. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, that was a real bit of good news, I thought.
That's good. That's really good.
That's leadership.
You know what? I've been out all day, so to be honest, folks, I haven't yet heard what John Swinney has said. So it's be a sort of be an unprepared immediate response you get from me in a wee minute when we get round to that. But I did see a photograph of the Palestinian flag being hoisted. I think it might have been was it St Andrew's House they were hoisting it? Yeah,
that was also part of John Swinney's statement a bit later on. He said it as a symbol of our support for the people. It was I think it was just for the duration of that debate, but doesn't matter. It's symbolic. It's important.
Yes,
and outside Holyrood, there's 10 hours of a vigil today from Mothers Against Genocide, or I'm not entirely sure what the title is.
Yeah, I think it's Mothers Against Genocide. Yeah.
And they're reading out the names of all the children who've been killed, and that's going to take 10 hours, which is just heartbreaking. So big important thing for us to do. And while we're not independent yet, that is as far as can go, but it's pushing right up against it.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And I mean, it gives us an indication of the kind of decisions that, well, there are some decisions that Scotland, that we're already taking, on our own behalf, but it does give you an indication of what it would be like if Scotland could make all its own decisions, and our First Minister could just say this and then say, and we'll be talking about it at the UN, and wouldn't have to say at the end of a little speech, and I'm going to be talking to the UK government to try and get them to do the same. It would be so different, wouldn't it?
Yeah. In fact, he started that speech off saying he was calling on the UK government to do what Ireland's done, and Norway, and all these other countries the same size as us.
Yeah.
But,
yes, indeed.
We're now into John Swinney's speech. So I've chunked it. It was only 10 minutes. I've chunked it up into 4 bits. And here is the first bit. And here's Marlene hearing it for the first time.
Thank you very much, Martha. Good morning, friends. I hope you've all had a great summer and that you've made the most of the outstanding weather. I was lucky enough to get from one end of Scotland to the other over the summer. And of course, if there's one place in Scotland where you can guarantee the sun will be shining, I'm told it's right here on Leith. Everywhere I've been, I'm hearing the same message from people. Times are tough, but there's also much to celebrate in our country, and a huge amount that is going well. I've set a clear goal for the SNP and government to focus on people's priorities. That's why in our health service, the number of GPs is up, the number of hospital operations is up, child poverty in Scotland is falling as it rises across the rest of the UK. Our young people are achieving outstanding exam results. And on Monday, we abolished peak rail fares, not just for a few months, but forever. That is the SNP standing up for Scotland.
That was the first bit. I noticed there was there's been lots of SNP politicians going on Monday morning were standing at various train stations around the country sort of saying, there's no more peak fares. And I know some of our local ones were down at Partick Station doing that first thing on Monday. There was the trial last year, and actually I think this idea may have originated from the Scottish Greens. I'm not quite certain about that. But anyway, it didn't take long for SNP to get behind it. I do wonder why they don't package it, promote it more as being equivalent to a very useful pay rise, because if you're a commuter and you've got a job, so you had to go in, you've now got a reasonably nice little chunk of money that has now become disposable income for you because you don't have to pay on a peak fare to get into work, and do you think they could kind of package it more like that? But anyway, it's great. Yeah, it's really good. We'll see what happens in the rest of Britain if anyone else follows suit. you can bet your bottom dollar that if they do, they won't mention that it's already happened up here.
Oh, they won't. But I mean, it's the same with our free bus fares for the under 22s. You know, they don't have that in England.
Suddenly you hear an English politician saying, it would be really good if our young people didn't have to pay bus fares. And you go, aye. It's just another example of when we make decisions for ourselves, they're good.
Yeah. And we've nationalised our railways, so we can do things like this. Yeah. And we've got the free buses. I really, really would love to see us get to the point where it's free public transport in Scotland for Scots, because talk about a pay rise, and the fares, the difference in some of these fares is about half. It's a huge saving for people. So yes. Fabulous. Now, we're on the train all the time, but we have the luxury of being able to choose when we travel anyway. And we would choose to travel at a time probably when it's less busy anyway. So we're not getting in the way of all the peak commuters. And I think that'll still be the case for a lot of people.
It's true. But because you and I were going to Perth, where I had to go, I had to get on a train before 9 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, why are they telling me it's costing £26 when it usually costs me 13? And that was the difference between off-peak and not off-peak. I mean, that's a big difference.
It is, but luckily that day I got the bus, so that evened out the cost.
That's true, you got the bus, a wee community bus.
A fabulous wee community bus. Shout out to Glenfarg Community Bus. Right, next one is again another thing that's been a really hot topic for us recently, and also came up at FMQs today about the narrative on refugees, and they also picked up on Saltires being in display and things. So this is, again, glad to see this. So I shall play the next one.
But there can be no doubt that Westminster is making their lives worse. Far too many people are struggling to get by. Years of flatlining living standards have taken their toll. Our answer as a party and a government is to work even harder to give real grounds for hope for a better future and for a better Scotland. At Westminster, there's a different response. Not to work harder for people, not to deliver action on the cost of living or in public services, but instead to scramble around looking for anyone to blame but themselves for the problems that they have helped to create. Over the summer, the language in Westminster around immigration and asylum has been utterly chilling. Politicians calling for mass deportations. They demand that we pull out of international human rights treaties. No one seems to be ringing the alarm bell. Well, I am. I'm ringing the alarm bell for our values, for our common humanity, for our commitment to the oppressed and for those seeking sanctuary. Friends, let us join with others in saying unequivocally, our Saltire is a flag of welcome, and refugees are welcome here in Scotland. When it comes to immigration, I can't imagine there are many people in Scotland who've not been cared for or treated in hospital or in social care by someone who was not born in Scotland. Let us thank those coming from overseas who choose to make Scotland their home and contribute so much to our community here in Scotland.
Interesting that, because as you know, yesterday I spent an hour over at Knightswood shopping centre at the West End of Glasgow, because that's been one of the places in Glasgow where that kind of, Farage Reform UK inspired graffiti, anti-Muslim, racist, and some of it has been appearing there. It's the council have got rid of it, but it was there, and an acquaintance of mine who is involved with the Stand Up to Racism Scotland group, she just said on a WhatsApp group that I'm part of that she was going to go up there for an hour and collect signatures from the folk just using that shopping centre. So I went up, and the guy who's going to be our SNP candidate for that constituency, he turned up. He was there. There weren't many of us. There was only maybe about five or six of us. And of course, it was a bit rainy, but actually, it was very well received. I mean, once you explained to people what it was, almost everyone said, "Oh yeah, I'll sign that." I mean, some people didn't, and there was a bit of abuse from one guy, but yeah, that was the exception. So it was like an hour, and it was a statement. It wasn't much, it wasn't huge, but it was the beginning of a kind of push back against that because it's sickening. I mean, I just feel sickened when that kind of behaviour, and it's straight out of the Trump playbook. Trump and what's his name, Steve Bannon playbook. You know, you get the Reformed, and they're going around bits of Glasgow putting up Saltires, and then putting anti-Muslim graffiti up. And then at the same time, Farage does this article with a load of misinformation, utterly inaccurate stuff about the number of immigrants in Glasgow and proportions of them, what have you. And that is straight out of Trump's playbook. Stir up hatred, stir up fear, get people angry. Oh, I was just sick. That's why I went up for the hour, just to help out.
And your little TikTok, it was a YouTube show that we got out of it. They're getting a lot of views.
Okay, so up at Scotstoun Shopping Centre, and there've been graffiti appearing here. You know, anti-Muslim, racist, and some of us are here to get signatures on a petition to protest against that. So, Colin, Charlotte, do you want to say something?
Yeah, hi, it's Charlotte from Stand Up to Racism here. We just thought we'd test the waters here in Knightswood to show people that there is opposition to racism in the area. We've seen racist graffiti go up, although it was removed very quickly. I can imagine that quite a number of people in Knightswood were alarmed and frightened by the fact that it was there. And we want to join in the community groups, faith groups, political parties to unite in opposition to this racism. We do not want it spreading here. We know it's coming from the top, politicians exploiting people's real desperation, the effects of austerity, etc. But we certainly do not want to see that turned into attacks on our brothers and sisters in the community. So we're here to say to people in Knightswood, join us in our fight against racism.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it seemed to me that a lot of it was straight out of Mr. Trump's playbook.
Definitely. But that's the agenda that's happening, isn't it? You know, it's, as Charlotte said, it's coming from the top. You know,
it's coming from the top of reform.
It's coming from the top, yes. And at the end of the day, it's the communities that will suffer. It's the ordinary people, because these people don't care about ordinary working class people. They don't care about people that don't have a job. They're not interested. As long as they fulfil their agenda, then, you know, that's all they're bothered about. They're not bothered about us. They're really not. Scotland's better than this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Scotland's much better.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible that it's happening anywhere in the UK, but it's just sickening that it's now got as far as us. So I sort of said, should we just do a little TikTok-y kind of thing on my phone? And did it. And it's on YouTube, but it's also on TikTok and Blue Sky. And actually, it's had getting on for 1,000 views. I mean, it's only a minute or so, but all that just kind of just helps. And I had a look at the comments, and all the comments on TikTok and elsewhere are saying things like, good on you, girls. Thanks for doing that. Not that we were all girls, but the two main speakers were. Thanks for doing that. We have to push back against this. So good. Yeah.
Well done. The TikTok queen. I remember when we first started. I'm not doing that.
I know. I was so. I was sort of TikTok. I think I said that to you. You'll have to do that yourself, because I'm not.
You did say that. And
now I'm quite getting it.
Bob Doris, it's his constituency is Maryhill, or Maryhill is in his constituency.
Yeah.
And he brought up the fact that the Saltire specifically was being, dragged into this, and he was very eloquent on why that was a bad thing. So I think we'll just play what he said. And then the interesting thing as well, there was the bloody Tories tried to develop some of the reform narrative about, oh, but look, this is why you haven't got services in Glasgow. It's all these illegal humans. And who did they get to do that?
The SNP open door policy to asylum is a sham, when even Susan Aitken, the SNP leader of Glasgow Council, says the number of asylum seekers is unsustainable. Peter Smith's ITV report highlights the farce of illegal migrants being prioritised for housing over legal migrants and Scots. Is it time the First Minister was honest with the people and admits that illegal immigration is crippling services in Glasgow?
First Minister.
I've set out my concern about where the debate about migration is going, and I honestly don't think that the contribution of Sandesh Gulhani helps us one bit to try to make sure our country remains cohesive and united as it has always been on these questions. Now, the issues that are faced in the City of Glasgow are fundamentally faced, and Councillor Aitken has made this point clear, because of the inadequacy of the approach of the United Kingdom Home Office. Now, that's where there needs to be a realisation of the implications of these issues, and I encourage the Home Office to engage with Glasgow City Council on these particular questions. So I want to make it absolutely clear to anyone that's listening that I think Scotland is a welcoming country. Under my leadership, it will remain a welcoming country, and that should be something that we are proud of as a country.
Bob Doris.
Presiding Officer, hundreds of Scottish Saltires have been put up in my constituency, predominantly but not exclusively in the Maryhill area. The Saltire is inclusive, welcoming and tolerant. However, serious concerns have been raised by many of my constituents that there may be an attempt by the far right to hijack our country's flag. Racist graffiti is starting to appear in my local areas, including Sink the Boats. One of my constituents was told the other day, get back on their boat. Many in Maryhill, from all backgrounds, have reached out to me with huge concern in offering their love, their support and their solidarity for all those, including immigrants and asylum seekers, who have made their life in Maryhill. Will the First Minister show his solidarity with the people of Maryhill, the vast majority of whom are indeed welcoming, tolerant and inclusive? And what practical support can the Scottish Government offer our communities?
First Minister.
Preserves, I could not have expressed that better than Mr Doris has expressed that point, and I agree with him that the national flag of Scotland has always been represented as an inclusive flag, which is there to draw all of us together in Scotland as an essential part of our national identity, and I would always want to make sure that was the case.
Dr. Sandesh Gulhani, with his cut-glass English accent, they got him here. I mean, it's just so calculating.
Yeah, no. And that sort of flags that went up at Maryhill. So as a pal of mine, she'd been down in England for some meeting. She got back into Glasgow. She was on the bus up Maryhill Road, and she saw the flags, and she put on Blue Sky. Oh, what was happening on Blue Sky that all the Saltires were there? That was really nice. I felt like I was being welcomed home, and I had to go and say yes. Well, unfortunately, that was Faragists joining this silly raise the banner stuff that's going on in England, and they're doing it with the Saltires. So I heard that one night they disappeared again. So I think the anti-reform UK people got the ladders out and cut them down.
That's good.
That was good.
That was good. And now part 3 is where he starts to get in on what I think is a really good approach. And he's not even using the independence word. It's about right to decide and democracy, which I think makes for perhaps a stronger argument. See what you think of this bit.
When our health service is in need of more and more staff, and Westminster is demonising migrants, it's not just disgraceful, it's harming our most precious public service. And we will have no part in it. Westminster politicians believe they know what is best for Scotland. Well, I'll tell you what I believe. I believe it is the people who live in Scotland who know what is best for Scotland. They have a right to determine what their future should look like. Today, we are here to make the case for Scottish self-determination. And we're here to make clear that giving people a choice over their future has never been more important, more urgent, or more necessary. At this crucial fork in our history, we need to look carefully at the two very different futures facing us. Westminster has failed to deliver higher living standards. People are working harder than ever, but still struggle to make ends meet, year after year after year. Whether we support independence or not, all of us want the best for Scotland. But as First Minister, when I look at the direction of travel of the UK, under Labour, under Tory, or as is looking increasingly likely Nigel Farage, I would not be doing my duty were I not to offer people a very different choice. Today, the Scottish Government has published a paper setting out the case for democracy. For the whole of my adult life, I believe that our future is best served as an independent country. And over the next few months, we will be arguing with all of our strength the case for Scotland to aspire to be like Ireland, like Denmark, like Norway, countries just like us that are wealthier and fairer than the UK. For me, the case for Scottish independence is self-evident. Others, of course, take a different view, and they are entitled to that different view. But today's paper is about all of us. It's about our collective right to debate, to discuss, and then to decide as a nation. So the paper sets out. The UK government have consistently stated that the UK is a voluntary union of nations. In Wales, the Labour government agree that Wales's future should be a matter for the people who live there. In Northern Ireland, a provision exists in the Good Friday Agreement for the Secretary of State to call a vote if they believe there is support for a united Ireland. And of course, England can become independent any time it wants if a majority of English MPs at Westminster vote for it. So there you have it. The UK is a voluntary union of nations. Well, that's except for viewers in Scotland. In the news where we are, a very different message is being broadcast. A regional opt-out is being applied on democracy. Well, friends, Scotland is not a region, Scotland is a nation. As today's paper sets out, for decades, politicians on all sides agreed that Scotland's future was a matter for people in Scotland. Funnily enough, they started to cool on that idea just at the point where it looks like we might pick the future that they don't want us to pick. Well, you can't just support democracy when it suits you. If you're not prepared to countenance getting an answer from the people that you don't want, then you cannot call yourself a Democrat. Westminster politicians may try to shut down this debate, but they know that the arc of history is against them. Among Scotland's people, there exists unwavering support for the basic principle of fairness, a resolute belief that if Scotland wants a say over her own future, then Scotland shall have one. At this pivotal moment in our story as a country, as our world changes rapidly around us, and as Westminster moves ever further away from the daily priorities of people in Scotland, let us come together and demand a say over our future as a country. By 2030, there'll be 1 million young Scots eligible to vote who were too young in 2014. Some of them were not even born then. That seems like a generation to me. More than anyone else, Scotland's future is their future, and they deserve to be heard.
What's good? Yes, it is good. It's also not anything that hasn't been said before, but I think how he said it, how he said it comes over pretty strongly. it's a sensible move to make because, the one about Scotland's right to decide, because apparently in polling, the question about independence is still about 50-50. But the polling for the Scotland's right to decide isn't. It's something like 57-60% saying, yeah, So obviously not all those people who say that's what they want are necessarily going to vote for independence. But so it's a sensible move to make. From my point of view, that's not enough, and he needs to move further into laying out the grounds for, to move into look what happens when Scotland makes its own decisions. A bit more of that, but that's okay. That'll come. Mm. That's all right.
There was two things in there I'd say that I think were good additions, and you're right, we have heard that before, but I thought that was the best I've heard him really zeroing it in on. It makes no sense at all to have a voluntary union that you can't get out of. That is just
I agree.
Nonsense.
Yeah, I agree. And interesting that he brought in Northern Ireland and Wales like that.
Yes, and
I love that little kind of reference to the news where we are, because that was clever. That was clever, yeah.
It was. But the other thing that, did you notice, he suggested a date as well. By 2030, a million Scots will have.
Yeah, I did notice that, and I thought, I don't have to wait till 2030.
I know. I kind of thought, time's ticking on here. But what is the date of the Westminster next general election? Is 2029, isn't it?
Yeah.
So is that him setting that up to be a de facto?
I mean, it's interesting because I think that whole thing about the statistics about people coming through who didn't vote in 2014. I think that's a good thing to keep saying. But, yes, but when he said 2030, I just kind of went, "Oh, come on, Mr. Swinney." I mean, if that is that kind of 2030. We want it to happen. I mean, I know he's not saying any of that. He's just using a statistic. That's all he's doing. And you know me, I'm always in favour of good statistics. But that one's just left me feeling a bit because I'm thinking, well, I hope I'm still here in 2030 to vote. But
But the other thing I thought that was clever there was he's swept away that whole once in a generation thing.
Yeah.
So he was very clear. Well, that seems like a generation to me, and it is. 25% of your electorate wasn't even born last time.
Yeah,
that is. It is. My implication, the 25 was shuffled off their mortal coil. And then he goes a little bit further about, remember that plan that's had a lot of criticism of his plan about an SNP majority being what is required in a system that we all know is designed not to allow that to happen. To see what you think, I think he softened his line a bit on that to say, well, that's what I'd like, but without closing the door on that being the only way. That's how I'm reading it, but see what you think. This is the final section of his speech.
Okay.
That 2014 referendum took place following a majority SNP win in the 2011 election. That's the precedent. That's what I'm determined to repeat. But this is not about me or the SNP or any politician. It's about the people of Scotland. And to the people of Scotland, I believe this can be a rallying declaration that Scotland is a nation, that we affirm that every nation has the right to choose her own future. We choose a future where Scotland decides her own government. We choose to build secure homes and strong communities where people and families can thrive. We choose to use our vast renewable wealth to lower bills and build prosperity. We choose to protect our National Health Service and public services for the generations to come. We choose to take our rightful place in Europe among the nations of the world. We choose to be a society where everyone has the chance to contribute and to belong. We resolve that Scotland's future must be guided by the will of the people who live here, to place choice, fairness and democracy at the heart of our national journey. This is our pledge, our right and our opportunity to write the next chapter in Scotland's story together. That's the right to decide, and that is our declaration today. Thank you very much.
that was good. He delivered it really well, and I think that's really well. I don't know if he wrote it or who wrote that bit of it, but it's really well written. It kind of, it says a lot about, the kind of country that we'd want to be, and it's really good that he keeps going, we choose. So that's good. I also think it's not enough, but it's good.
No, I agree.
It's a good place to be at this point in the electoral cycle.
And it's a lot more than has been, said over the last, how many years? But strangely enough, you won't be surprised to know that FMQs, that is the thing that Russell Findlay, who was sitting in your seat for some reason at Holyrood.
Well,
But
anyone who's wondering what we're talking about, you have to watch our podcast about Danny Dorling, or at least go onto our on YouTube channel and look at the shorts, and you'll see me asking a question in Holyrood. But from the Tory benches. But I mean, Findlay was sort of, desperately trying to shoot him down, and actually accused him of, he made some reference to, it's 30 years since the movie Braveheart came out. John Swinney's, he had practically painted his face blue, and Swinney's face was absolutely, just giving him nothing, just glared at him. So what was it about that? You were saying you felt there was a bit of a softening about that?
Yes. I just thought that when John Swinney had come out with here's my plan for independence, and it was predicated on the SNP only getting a majority, and that's something that's extremely unlikely anyway in Holyrood. But people like Ross Greer, for one, the seniors, were going, well, hang on a minute, if you're going to count votes as being the deciding factor, surely it would be all the independence parties. And you kind of have to row back to, each party wants to win, wants to get their best result for their party at an election. And this is where the ground gets very muddy when you're talking about de factos in actual elections. But I thought that was kind of, well, look, this is what I want for my party, but it's not all about me, which kind of, to me, sounded as if he was going, this is what Scotland chooses, if this is what the electorate wants, which opened the door, in my mind anyway, to it being a wider choice than that.
Well,
and, I think that's more reasonable.
Yeah, and I mean, that just goes back to, at the point where Nicola Sturgeon was the First Minister and she brought the Greens into government. I mean, that in a way was to strengthen the point of view that up here, we've got a majority of MSPs who are in favour of independence, and we've even included them in. They've got they're part of the government, and unfortunately, it came to a rather sad end with somebody else. But so yes, there is that, and I just think it's just interesting, isn't it? Sorry, as long as each of those parties has made it really clear in its manifesto that a vote for us is a vote for Scottish independence, then kind of why not? But that's what he was referring to when he said, if there is a majority of one party, pro-independence party, then we know the precedent has been set back in 2011 that resulted in a referendum. That's what he's pointing to. It's not enough.
I get that. It's not enough. And I think it's ridiculous to set the bar higher than it needs to be if actually, there's a broader way of doing it. But I do get your point about as the leader of that party, he can't actually point you in that direction. But we'll see how it develops.
We'll see.
I just thought he was, this was a good, positive thing. He was well delivered. There was, a lot in there that I liked. It's only the first week back, and already they've got, independence was the very first thing being discussed at FMQs. So
yes, it's good. It is. It's good. It's encouraging. The political kind of scene in Scotland is going to be very different for Holyrood, because whether we like it or not, Reform UK is part of that scene now. So that's going to... Yeah, and Corbyn. Well, so, if you've got Farage and a right-wing kind of spectre of a right-wing kind of, influence coming in, that's going to push people. People are going to have to decide who to go with or who not to go with. And some folk in Scotland will vote for Farage. But hopefully other people will pull back and go, I don't want anything to do with that. I'm going to vote for an independent supporting party. So that's still kind of got to be grappled with. That's one thing. And then, you're right. The Corbyn, the so-called, so far it's just your party, isn't it? We don't know what it's going to be called yet.
So that was our hot topic. Let's see what happens next week.
Yes, let's see what happens next week. There'll be another one, won't there? Yeah, great. Good. Thanks for watching.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're listening on YouTube, you can click the little bell and you get a reminder whenever we put out a new episode, which is every Friday.
And sign up for our mailing list. You can do that from the website. And we always send one out at the beginning of each month to tell you what's happening. Last but not least, you can buy us a coffee on coffee.com.
And we'll catch you later. Bye now.